I was in college when the massacre occurred at Columbine High School. It was 1999, and among the burgeoning and ridiculous Y2K hysteria, we suddenly had something legitimate to be worried and scared about. Now, there'd been a shooting on Penn State's campus where I was in 1996. One person was killed and another was injured, and it was a big deal, but it was nothing like Columbine. We watched TVs in shock, images like we had never seen before. SWAT teams outside of school, kids running for their lives across the campus, camera footage inside of people running for their lives, of fires burning, of shooters with the guns, panicking students. It was shocking, it was horrifying, and it was unimaginable. Nothing like that had ever happened before. That was 19 years ago as I record this, and in that time, school shootings have become routine. You hear about a school shooting, it's like, oh, must be Thursday. And the very fact that that sentence can be uttered is a sign that something is very fundamentally wrong with this country. 19 years. That means that people graduating high school this year were born after Columbine happened, and that people graduating college generally don't remember the time before Columbine, don't remember a time when school shootings weren't just a fact of life. When I was in school, mass shootings at school weren't even on the radar. Home was safe, school was safe. We were told to be careful of strangers on the way from the bus stop to home. But now, schools have lockdown procedures, they have active shooter drills. Elementary students, children as young as 5 years old, are learning and practice what to do to not get shot, where to go, how to hide, staying quiet. And the mass shootings aren't just in schools. There's the concert shooting in Vegas, the theater shooting in Aurora. Fort Hood is a military base, and they've had two mass shootings there. I find I don't have it on me to mock kids for the concept of wanting safe spaces, especially when we realize that for many of them, especially in the post 9/11 world where we've always been at war and where school shootings have always been a fact of life, there have never been safe spaces for them. Not even elementary schools have been a safe space. If any school shooting has shocked the nation as much as Columbine, it was Sandy Hook, where 20 of the victims were first graders ages 6 or 7. Even as school shootings became the norm, the deaths of this many children, young children, was appalling, and it resonated, and there were renewed calls to address gun violence in a meaningful way. And as we all know, absolutely nothing happened. This one, Parkland, seems different. This one is gaining traction and change is happening. Not much, not fast, but change nonetheless. I think part of it is that the students from Parkland who have stepped up to the plate in the wake of the shooting at their school, they know what they're doing. They're articulate, they're inclusive, they're intersectional, they're making it an issue that is not exclusively about themselves. They have the reasonable common sense message on their side, and they know how to get it out there through media and social media, which is a lot more than the entire Democratic Party has ever managed to do. And they aren't making easy mistakes. They aren't lashing out with personal attacks, even in response to personal attacks that are being launched on them. They have their goal, and they know their resources, and they know how to use them and how to maximize their impact. It's a wonderful thing to see, and I support them fully. And I can only feel embarrassed and even a bit guilty that they even have to do this in the first place. I've seen a lot of writing, a lot of articles, a lot of memes that have gone around in the wake of this particular shooting, and one in particular is very much struck. It struck a chord and it stuck with me. And it basically said that regardless of your position on the issue of gun violence, gun control, anything like that, when you remove all the partisan bullshit from the issue, what we're left with is kids who are tired of being shot at, tired of being in danger of being killed, and they're asking adults for help. That's the issue. And for this, they're criticized, they're slandered, they're mocked, they're derided, they're ridiculed. They've received death threats because classmates died and they're speaking out because they don't want it to happen again to someone else. They call these kids crisis actors. They trash their kids' appearances. Why is this one barefoot in this picture? Why does this one have torn jeans? anything. These people who are against these kids will say or do anything to avoid addressing the actual gun issue. Kids are saying, adults, help protect us from gun violence. And the adults are saying, glad to help. We'll give you CPR lessons and buckets of rocks and adults who will shoot kids back. And the kids are just saying, fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. Because clearly no help is going to come from adults in this. Adults want to arm teachers. Like, I know teachers. I have friends who became teachers, friends who are teachers, an ex-girlfriend who became a teacher. And they all talked of the love and joy of working with kids, of helping them see the light, the dawning comprehension in their eyes when they understand a new concept. Not one of them ever talked about helping kids hide in classrooms and storerooms behind desks, or desperately trying to keep them quiet, or the possibility of having to shoot one of those kids to protect others. Nationwide teacher strikes are showing how unappreciated and under-equipped and underpaid teachers are. But we'll give them guns? See, the most prominent official adult responses to school shootings tend to center around stopping the shooter faster, not on stopping them from being a shooter in the first place. Armed guards, buckets of rocks, for crying out loud. Things that have been proposed that aren't to kill the shooter faster are things like clear backpacks, which I imagine can be foiled by putting the gun between two opaque objects, and walk up, not out, which misses the point on so many levels that it's not even remotely funny. Adults being patronizing and condescending to children, telling them, just be nice and everything will be fine. And if it's not fine, it's your fault because you weren't nice enough. You need to do the work, but do the work in a way that doesn't require us to change or even give it any attention on our part. Fix this without speaking out or drawing attention to it. Just make it go away without bothering us. That's where the adults stand on this. And the kids are getting this feedback from adults, and they aren't taking it. They're taking matters into their own hands. And it really actually makes me feel proud of what this country is capable of and genuinely hopeful for the future for the first time in a while on a larger scale than just seeing one or two minor incidents here or there. The difference these kids are making is a very impressive thing. See, gun violence is not a problem that's created by kids. This is a problem that was created by adults. It's a problem that's being inherited by kids. And they see that adults are doing jack about it. So they're doing what they can to address it. And they're unafraid of the backlash. They're not old enough to be worried about being dragged into the system of having kids and a mortgage and bills to pay, where they have to fear losing everything if they speak up. They're free to speak their minds without having their livelihoods taken away from them. And honestly, they had a shooter in their school, murdering people they cared about, people they spent every day with. They saw classmates die and they had to run for their lives. Do you really think they're going to be intimidated by some blowhard pundit on Fox? Adults continue to be the problem here, and kids have to clean up after them, after us. And they are behaving more responsibly and more reasonably and more maturely than most of the adults criticizing them. They're more mature, more adult than the adults who are childishly attacking them. And to the adults who are acting this childishly and telling kids to shut up and go away and that they don't belong on the front line of this debate, the only thing I can say to them is you forfeited your right to say kids don't belong on the front lines of gun control when you decided you are okay with them being on the front lines of gun violence. And the fact that this is our reality is wrong. It's sick, it's appalling, it's horrifying, it's malignant that we have this mindset that this is acceptable. But largely with the help of these kids, we are seeing the backlash against gun violence growing. The nationwide turnout at over 800 rallies across the United States shows there's a strong national support for gun control, despite what some will claim. There were even rallies outside the United States, in Europe and elsewhere. American gun violence is so extreme and so appalling and so routine that it is recognized internationally, globally, as an international disgrace. And people who aren't American and have never been to America still participated in the rallies. I think it's pretty clear from this that people are getting fed up with the only response being thoughts and prayers. Because much like an issue that was before my time, the Vietnam War, Adults were happy to stay the course while the younger generation died en masse. Until the younger generation stood up and turned public tide against the war and the people who supported it. That's when things changed. Children have far more power than they realize, and adults who once realized it seem to forget that as they age. And so children are cleaning up the mess that we left them. And I'm sorry we didn't do more to prevent this. I'm sorry it's become their job, because it shouldn't be. But it's fallen to them, and honestly, I couldn't be more thrilled with the job that they're doing. I hope that they can continue with enough support to help turn the tide, with enough support from adults, from people like us who should have solved this long before now. It's early in this, and there's still a long way to go, a lot left to accomplish, especially getting young people to show up to vote so that the government starts representing their interests again. And it's important to never stop pushing, because the moment you stop pushing for progress, the people who prefer the old status quo will start rolling back everything that you've accomplished. And we see it happening now. But for now, for today, these kids from Parkland who've suffered through a tragedy they never wanted, were thrust into a spotlight they never requested, they've demonstrated a sense of social responsibility and empathy for others that their critics are incapable of understanding. And this gives me genuine hope that things can actually improve. Maybe, just maybe, we can learn something from the successes of the children who have suffered and learned from our failures.